What's up, y'all? My name's Ray. Thanks for coming to my channel. Let's talk about some other stuff that's really pissing me off lately, and that's the right wing's war on public education and American history. I have a few especially irritating clips to share with you today from a couple of our favorite purveyors of bigoted right wing propaganda, PragerU and Fox News, and I'd like to use them as a general framework for a quick little chat about what we're teaching American kids in public schools. Now, I could spend all day trying to fully articulate why I feel like this issue is so important, but this video isn't exactly about that. So, after quite a bit of deliberation, this is as succinctly as I think I can put my thoughts on the matter. Better educated kids make for better Americans, which makes for a better America. And, that generally makes sense, right? Well, not to bigoted right wingers, it doesn't. They prefer propaganda and indoctrination to history and education. All right, jumping straight into the fire, let's have Tucker Carlson set the hyperbolic, fear mongering, dishonest propaganda tone. How do you think Tucker Carlson would describe the concept of critical race theory, which we know conservatives use as a catch all term for anything related to teaching American kids about America's history of racism and oppression? How do you think Tucker Carlson would describe that concept as a whole? The title of the video does serve as a bit of a spoiler. It's titled, You're Watching the Death of the Future of Our Country. So, enjoy.
When their kids come home from school with assignments that suggest that all races are not, in fact, equal, that some races are guilty and some are innocent, that some groups are oppressors inherently and others are inherently oppressed. In the universities, this is called critical race theory. So that's the term that most people go with. Critical race theory. That's what we so often debate on television. But critical race theory is an inaccurate way to describe what's happening. It's not critical race theory. It's race hate. Whiteness, white rage, dressed up as some new academic theory.
Dude.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah, okay, KK Carlson, tell us how you really feel. I don't know how you can be so belligerently ridiculous and keep a straight face. I really don't. The fear mongering, the victim narrative, the drama, it's all ratcheted up to the max at all times with this guy, isn't it? I mean, look at the graphic, for Christ's sake. Look at that shit. These people desperately want to indoctrinate America's children with their bootlicking, nationalistic, white supremacist poison, and it's up to us to stop them at the ballot box and to ensure that public schools are properly funded and, empowered to teach a realistic and reasonably objective view of American history and indeed world history. All right, next I want you to check out some of this awful video from PragerU titled, What Are Your Kids Learning in School?
Critical race theory says that racism is woven into the very fabric of American society. What does this look like in a school setting?
Okay, real quick, this is Jill. She works for PragerU. She sucks, and she's about to list off 3 things she says are happening in schools around the country. Let's see how those things sound to us, and then contrast that with how PragerU summarizes them.
Middle and high school students in Wellesley, Massachusetts are being taught to be on the lookout for unconscious racial bias in their classmates.
Okay, yeah, right off the bat, this is a good thing. I want kids to learn about unconscious bias and understand how to recognize it within themselves and among their peers. Social awareness, critical thinking, intellectual empathy, all very good things to learn about and to practice. Okay, what's next?
In Colorado, first graders are being taught that just because someone looks like a boy doesn't mean they are.
Okay, again, good stuff in general. Just because somebody looks a certain way doesn't mean they are a certain way, and you should make definitive judgments about them. Just because somebody looks like a boy doesn't mean they are a boy, and that's okay. Let's teach kids that identity is about more than their outward appearance. Okay, so that's 2 things. What's the third thing?
And, of course, the world faces imminent disaster from global warming.
Right, it's climate change. We might have guessed, yeah. So this video isn't about climate change, but suffice to say, it's real and kids should learn about it. So that's 3 things that all sound pretty good to me. I think we could frame them all in a positive light pretty confidently. I wonder how PragerU would summarize those things, though. What do you think?
In sum, many of our schools are teaching children that our past is terrible and that they have no future.
Jesus.
It's a bit dramatic, don't you think?
With all this being drummed into their heads, no wonder today's kids have more psychological problems than any previous generation.
That's a shitty thing to say.
It's a very shitty thing to say.
Like, it's only been a couple of generations since we've been diagnosing and treating mental health issues and disorders with any kind of specificity or medical integrity. So, to say that the data reflects that this generation's kids have more psychological problems than previous generations is just grossly disingenuous. And it's a really ugly thing to say. Certainly, kids these days face a unique set of challenges because their environment is different than that of any previous generation. But just because the issues of today are different doesn't mean that yesterday's issues weren't woefully underreported and undertreated. And PragerU knows this. They know how disingenuous and downright malicious that comment is. It's gross. Moving on. Here's another PragerU video that sucks. It's called How to End Systemic Racism, but the true thesis of the content is revealed when PragerU's Amala Epunobi says,
It is the woke left that is systemically racist, not America.
so yeah, the video is actually about how the left is super racist and how Democrat policies are too woke and are actually counterproductive and harmful to minorities. It's pure propaganda from start to finish, and the examples that Amala is about to give you range from grossly dishonest all the way to completely and demonstrably false. Let's look at a few of those examples that deal specifically with public schools and educational policies in general. Check it out.
Here's how bad it is. At Columbia University, black students have a separate graduation from white students.
Bullshit. You're talking bullshit.
Yeah, that's obviously not true. Columbia University doesn't have separate graduation ceremonies for black students and white students. That's ridiculous. I'll let Columbia University describe what Amala is actually referring to here. Check this out. Graduations are a moment of celebration at Columbia. We like to offer our graduates as many chances to celebrate during commencement week as possible. In addition to the university-wide commencement ceremony and each school's class day, our undergraduate students organize multicultural graduation celebrations that allow them to celebrate the cultural intersections in their lives and honor the communities to which they belong. These celebrations are open to anyone in the Columbia community who wants to celebrate a particular culture or group. So it's hosted by affinity groups, student affinity groups, right? Like African American students, Asian American students, LGBTQIA plus students, first generation immigrants, etc. And it's in addition to Columbia University's established graduation ceremony and each school's individual class day, like the School of Business, the School of Law. And this just shows how disingenuous Amala and PragerU are going to be throughout this video. So what's next?
In Oregon, black students are told that math is a white construct, all but guaranteeing failure in this essential skill.
You're talking bullshit.
Yeah, obviously also false. I'll read you what Snopes has to say on the subject. The ODE, the Oregon Department of Education, did not explicitly tell teachers that requiring students to show their work in math class was a form of white supremacy. Okay, so right off the bat, did not do that. Rather, the department told Snopes that expanding the ways in which teachers make students explain their question answering process beyond the written word and numbers could help eliminate racial and language performance gaps. Okay, so that's a fancy way of saying they're making improvements on the way that teachers interact with students when it comes to showing your work and explaining how you arrived at a correct answer. Part of the benefits of that could be to help eliminate racial and language performance gaps. I don't know how you get from there all the way to they're being told math is a white construct and thus doomed to fail. Just more dishonesty and just a general lack of integrity here from PragerU. Nothing new. So now what?
In Oakland, no student is allowed to get a D or an F. Instead, everyone is simply promoted to the next grade whether they know the material or not.
You're talking.
It's bullshit. Obviously, no one is suggesting passing every student who doesn't know the material onto the next grade. That's dumb. Okay, so very much false. What she's alluding to is the fact that Oakland is among several California school districts that is considering phasing out D and F grades. I'll give you some context by reading from a Bay City News article on this. Okay, Los Angeles Unified, Oakland Unified, and other districts are phasing out grades below a C for high school students. If a student fails a test or doesn't complete their homework, they'll be able to retake the test and get more time to turn in assignments. The idea is to encourage students to learn the course material and not be derailed by a low grade that could potentially disqualify them from admission to university. Students who don't learn the material, pass the final exam, or finish homework by the end of the semester would earn an incomplete. So it's not a way to pass students who don't know the material. It's a way to empower students who have suffered maybe some hiccups in their academic journey or gone through some kind of trauma or just done poorly in the past are not hindered by carrying that baggage throughout the rest of their academic career. Okay, so they're empowered to finish the assignments when they're ready, to pass the exams when they're ready to show that their mastery of the material, and then to move on at that point. Okay, it's not about giving people a free pass, it's about allowing students to succeed. Okay, I might make another video that goes through the rest of Amla and PragerU's garbage list of examples here, but for now, that's quite enough of that video. Moving on. Okay, this last clip I want to look at is actually the one that got me started on my little rant here, and that's because it's a great example of the kind of filth you can sell an audience of uneducated bigots, and it made me sad to think about the state of public education in our country. It's a Fox News segment featuring Tammy Bruce and Ben Carson, two truly insufferable individuals, and they're going to be lobbying complaints at the Biden administration's infrastructure bill, specifically a $1.5 billion allocation for, well, I'll let them try to explain what they're actually complaining about.
The Biden agenda is, as we know, failing on every front, obviously. For example, we are now learning more about a new $1.5 billion, that's with a B, dollar grant from the Transportation Department.
Yeah, billion with a B, as in 1/4467th of the US budget. Meaning, if the annual budget of the United States was $1,000, this would account for roughly 22 cents of it. It's not an insignificant amount of money, but like, slow your roll with the billion with a B shit.
To fund woke pet projects surrounding so-called racial equity.
So called racial equity? Like the concept is laughable, never mind the fact that you're providing no examples? Nice.
And economy-killing climate change initiatives.
Oh, economy killing climate change initiatives. I love how they don't say ineffective or counterproductive. They just say economy killing, as if that were the only metric by which we would measure the success of climate change initiatives. But nevertheless, we don't want to kill the economy. Where are the examples?
And the best part? All of the funds are coming from the infrastructure bill that Biden signed last year. But just like their COVID relief bill wasn't actually about COVID, the infrastructure bill covers way more than traditional infrastructure.
Oh, what the fuck does that mean? Covers way more than traditional infrastructure? What is traditional infrastructure? Do you mean that this is not some antiquated piece of legislation which ignores the last century of human innovation? Or do you have any examples you're going to share with us? No?
Mild shock.
Here with more, giving us a bit more background and analysis, former HUD secretary is one of our favorites, of course, Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Carson, thank you for joining me tonight. We know that the nation's in some degree of trouble. You are an example of the kind of man that this nation produces and delivers to help the American people.
Yeah, that's not how I would describe Ben Carson, but continue.
What do you say when it comes to this kind of spending of money on absurd projects?
What absurd projects?
Well, it's rather quite sad that we would use this excuse to funnel money in for the pet projects, the Christmas wish list of the woke left.
First of all, holy shit, this dude is boring. Secondly, what wish list? Like, what fucking examples, people?
If you think back to the last administration, I mean, there were a whole plethora of things that really worked much better than this equity stuff.
What equity stuff, dude? What stuff?
You know, I think you're absolutely right. And it's very wise assessment there.
You're not serious, right?
Because when we're looking at the nature of what they would propose, things like from the Department of Transportation, we've heard them talk about the racism of highways.
The racism of highways. What overtly dismissive phrasing. We can assume she's referring to the well-established fact that transportation infrastructure in the United States was designed in part to further segregate African Americans. As a matter of fact, let's read from the White House press release on the infrastructure bill to get some more context around this. reversing decades of disinvestment through the bipartisan infrastructure law. For years, politicians have talked about investing in our national infrastructure, but up until now, they have failed to follow through. The lack of investment has fallen most heavily on Black communities and other underserved communities. The bipartisan infrastructure law will replace lead pipes, increase access to training and good quality jobs, expand affordable high speed internet, reliable public transit, and clean drinking water, reconnect Black neighborhoods divided by legacy highway infrastructure, and provide other resources to finally give Black communities a fair shot at the American dream. During the 20th century, federally funded infrastructure projects too often segregated and harmed low income communities, especially predominantly Black neighborhoods. Construction of the federal highway system, in particular, cut off once thriving Black communities from resources and opportunity. So that is what this entire Fox News video is bitching about. I mean, it's not the most exciting thing I've ever read, but really, really, this is what you have such a problem with. This is what is too woke, and this is the so-called racial equity problem. Reinvesting in communities that have been underserved by previous infrastructure bills. Really?
And how every decision effectively that's made is this structural racism, and that money somehow is going to cure that.
What a stupid thing to say. No one supposes that a modest investment in transportation infrastructure is going to cure systemic and structural racism in the United States. But you know what? It might help a little bit. Shut up.
And what it makes everybody think is that the system, you can't win at all, you're lost, that even the roads are against you.
Why are you the way that you are?
I swear, these people are just.
The worst.
And yeah, I think the problem starts with education. I think we defeat this kind of propaganda in the classroom first and foremost. Teach kids to think critically, and they'll see through bullshit like MAGA and QAnon and Fox News. Give them a lens through which to view history critically and with some reasonable objectivity, and they'll grow up to appreciate and celebrate America's diversity rather than to fear it. This has to be accomplished through better investment in public education, which is something the bigoted nutjobs on the right will fight tooth and nail to prevent. It's a battle we absolutely must win. And with that, guys, I'll wrap it up. Thank you. If you've stuck around this long and you enjoyed this content, please do leave a like on the video. Leave me some of your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel. I'd really, really appreciate it. Thanks again for coming by and checking out my video, and I hope I see y'all again soon. Peace out.